Hello my horror movie peeps, we have now entered 2023, and although last year was an amazing year for horror, we get to look forward to another spectacular, spookular year. And to look forward to this spookular year, what I've decided to do is go through the list of major horror movie releases that we'll be getting in 2023, talk about the ones we're looking forward to the most, which ones look like they might be early stinkers, couple of hidden gems you weren't expecting to get released this year, all because maybe you're like me and new horror movies just keep you going, keep your blood rushing, make you feel like you're alive. But as we go through this list, let me know which movie you're most looking forward to, which one you think will be a nice surprise this year, which one can you guess will be an early stinker, your most anticipated ones, please leave them down below. But okay, kicking things off here with the first horror movie of the year coming out this Friday, praise your queen, Megan. It is a rare blue moon if I'm ever excited for the very first horror movie to be released of the new year, because they're usually poop dead stinkers. But as a fan of killer doll movies, I have been dying for the days that we go back to dolls that actually move about, grab some deadly items, and go after their victims. Megan is gonna not only deliver on that, but it's gonna play into the fact that that type of trope is a little cheesy, is a little campy. The only thing holding me back with Megan is that the creative team recently came out and admitted that yeah, the movie was going to be rated R, but because of the internet popularity it got, they went back and reshot some stuff so it could be a PG-13. And nothing against PG-13 horror, I know there can be some really great ones out there, but if it was already gonna be rated R, why'd you censor her? From there, on January 13th, we will get a limitedly released movie in theaters and on Shudder called Skinamarink. Now don't get it confused with Skid Mark, because that's what I see every time I look at this title, but it's supposed to be an experimental horror film that deals in found footage about kids who wake up one night, windows are open, doors are unlocked, their parents are missing, they decide to sleep in the living room to wait for them, and then some paranormal creepy stuff starts happening. It's been getting some viral buzz as one of the newest, scarier horror movies that you will ever see. It'll truly frighten you, while there's been a few people who have gotten the chance to see it saying it's pretty boring and just a bunch of generic shots of static TVs, doorknobs, and just empty dark hallways with some 2004 footage. Whatever it ends up being, experimental horror is always welcome. From there, the following week on January 27th, we'll be getting a new Mia Goth horror movie entitled Infinity Pool. This one follows Alexander Skarsgård, who plays James, a writer looking for inspiration in a new country, but this trip for inspiration does not go as planned as Mia Goth introduces him to a whirlwind of violence and just devious acts. It honestly looks just kind of like a trippy, messed up movie where Mia Goth is gonna shine again with some acting that I know will go viral online the same way Pearl did. I'll be honest and say I'll probably just check this out for Mia Goth, as the trailer just didn't seem all that appealing to me. Moving on to February 3rd, we get a brand new M. Night Shyamalan horror movie titled Knock at the Cabin, and this looks right up my alley. When on vacation, two fathers and their young daughter are visited by a group of strangers at their cabin, tying them down against their will and informing them that if they don't do a heinous act, the world will come to an end. This to me has all the makings to be one of the better M. Night Shyamalan horror movies. From the trailer alone, it just really hooked me in, because I could not imagine being put in that situation, and with M. Night Shyamalan as the director, the twist of the movie will probably end up being that the apocalypse will actually happen. Then again, I'm going to tame my expectations, because I wasn't the biggest fan of Old. I thought that one had a strong premise, but then kind of failed with its execution. Moving on to February 15th, the day after Valentine's Day, you and your sweetheart can go and check out Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. This will be a one-time theater release, and then it'll just most likely make its way online for VOD, but this will be the horror reimagining of the character we've all grown up loving, Winnie the Pooh, where after Christopher Robin has abandoned Winnie and Piglet, all these years later, he returns to the 100-acre woods to find out they've gone feral and hungry, deciding then to prey on a group of girls who have gone to the cabin in the woods, only to be hunted down by Winnie the Pooh and Piglet. This movie is responsible for one of the biggest trends going on right now of turning your childhood characters into horror movies. I'm all up for it, because hopefully if this goes good and people actually check it out, then maybe they will actually throw some actual money into the next one. Not necessarily for Winnie the Pooh, but all the other characters that are getting horror movies. I am gonna admit though, even with its low budget, some of the shots in Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey actually look pretty cinematic, and like I could actually get over the fact that this was a low budget horror movie. Then on February 24th, we have the perfect example for a movie with a ridiculous premise, but all the budget to make it watchable: White Powdered Sugar Bear, as that's not the actual title, because saying the actual title will get me demonetized, and that January YouTube money ain't that great, y'all, so I need them likes and clicks, please. But based on the actual true story of a bear in the woods that stumbled upon a bag of white powder, sniffed it, and then died about 10 minutes later, this movie will take the Hollywood approach and pretending that that bear, after he sniffed the white powder, went on a murderous rampage, and I love the looks of it from the trailer. It knows it's nonsensical, it's playing up on the fact that it's a true story, and it's just gonna be a dumb good time. And then on March 10th of 2023, my most anticipated horror movie of them all, Scream, Roman numeral 6. I totally understand the people who are reserving judgment for this movie because Neve Campbell, Sidney Prescott is not attached, and although she is the queen of this franchise, I'm very open to the idea of something new going on because I feel like that is what the franchise needs, something that breaks the formula from the past 4 movies that have been great. We're following the surviving members of the 5th movie now in college in New York, where they are getting haunted by a new ghost face rocking a deteriorated mask. From that teaser trailer alone, it showed me that they're going to be using New York to their full advantage on Halloween Day, costumes everywhere. Also, the acknowledgement that this is the 6th installment, not trying to add some sort of BS tagline. I think this might end up being one of the better Scream movies, or at least that's just how much of a high hopes I have being a fan of this franchise. From there, on March 17th, a sci-fi horror movie that we've desperately been needing in Hollywood is one that involves dinosaurs. As soon as this Adam Driver sci-fi thriller came on line 65 about a man that crash lands on prehistoric Earth where he must also face off against dinosaurs, I knew this would be one of those movies I'd see as soon as I could. The Jurassic Park franchise has held on to dinosaurs for long enough. We need to let other franchises have their fun with these creatures, and this sci-fi thriller might be the exact movie to do it. I just wish they maybe chose a catchier title, because unless they're sticking dinosaurs on every single one of the 65 posters, I'm hoping general audiences don't skip out on this one, because I need me more dinosaur-like horror movies out there. Then on April 14th, we'll be getting a movie entitled Rainfield that stars Nicholas Hoult as Dracula's assistant who grows tired of the position and being his henchman, deciding to revolt and change his life. It is more of a horror comedy that's going to be rated R and star Nicolas Cage as Dracula himself. We have gotten some behind the scene photos that make him look pretty great in the role. I'm just waiting to see some footage of this thing. Then on April 21st, we'll be returning to the Evil Dead franchise with Evil Dead Rise, where it'll follow 2 sisters and their children in an LA apartment that discover the Necronomicon, only for them to unleash a whole bunch of demons, putting them in a fight for survival until the next morning. This being the 5th installment in the Evil Dead franchise, I like that they're trying something new, no longer set in the cabin in the woods. Bruce Campbell is not set to appear at all. He is a producer on the movie. This was also a film that was going to go straight to HBO Max, but because of new leadership and the movie actually turning out decent, they decided to put it in theaters. A couple of images from the movie have been released online. No trailer yet, but I am looking forward to the day they drop it because I'm hyped for this one. Then on July 7th, another highly anticipated horror movie for me, Insidious V, that is rumored to be titled Fear the Dark. But even though this is the 5th installment in the Insidious franchise, it is going to be a direct sequel to Insidious 2, where we then again follow the family from the first 2 movies 10 years later after the last time they've been haunted. Not only are the previous cast members returning for this one, Patrick Wilson, the father of the movie, is directing this movie. And to me, the first 2 Insidious movies are my go-to for PG-13 horror movies that are actually very effective because they had some genuinely great jump scares and scary storytelling. And with them kind of taking almost a legacy sequel approach to this, I'm interested to see how this pans out and if it can be just as effective as it was when it first came out. Then on August 4th, we'll be getting a sequel to The Meg entitled Meg 2: The Trench. Jason Statham and team will be coming back to face off against another megalodon. While these are more action than horror, it's still kind of cool to get a big budget shark movie, especially when we live in a world of countless just horrendous shark movies made every other week. There's a dumb fun nature to that first one that I think will probably be present this second time around, but hopefully, it's a little bit more effective. Then on August 11th, 2023, we'll be getting a movie entitled The Last Voyage of Demeter. This will actually be our second Dracula-related movie for 2023 that'll be taking the section from Bram Stoker's Dracula, in where a ship that is carrying coffins of vampires is transported from Transylvania to England, and that ship arrived on the port with no survivors. So basically, it's a boat horror movie that involves vampires that could be really fun and effective. You're in the ocean, nowhere to run, nowhere to really swim. There's vampires on board. I think that could actually be a pretty good horror movie. Then on that same week in August 11th, we get Disney's live-action adaptation of The Haunted Mansion. I was never the biggest fan of the Eddie Murphy one growing up, so I'm curious to see how this one turns out. They have a pretty stacked cast in here of people like Jamie Lee Curtis, Jared Leto, Owen Wilson, Tiffany Haddish. The storyline seems pretty basic to me in terms for The Haunted Mansion. A mother and her son move into a mansion only to find out it's haunted, then getting a group of people to try and figure out how to de-haunt this place. Then on September 8th of 2023, we'll be getting a sequel to one of the worst Conjuring movies ever made, The Nun. Now, it's happened before in the Conjuring franchise where the second installment turns out way better than the first. I'm talking to you, Annabelle Creation. And that's exactly what I'm hoping happens here with The Nun 2, because she was one of the most terrifying characters introduced in the Conjuring universe in The Conjuring 2. But then seeing that first solo Nun movie just did not do it for me. I really do think it's the worst one that they've made out of all of them, even La Llorona. But that's because I grew up with my mama threatening me with La Llorona all my life. But this time around, set in 1956 France, we'll have Valak return to haunt a couple of members in the Nun Society, just hopefully done so much better than the last time around. Bringing us to October 13th of 2023, we'll be getting Blumhouse's first entry in a trilogy for The New Exorcist. The same way Blumhouse decided to reboot the Halloween franchise and Michael Myers, they are trying to put in that same logic with the Exorcist franchise, with making this new trilogy a direct sequel to the very first Exorcist film, even going as far as bringing back legacy characters like Linda Blair, and David Gordon Green, who also did the last 3 Halloween films, will also be directing it. I'm actually pretty dang excited. I don't have the biggest nostalgia or attachment to the original Exorcist franchise. I really do appreciate that first film for as creepy and effective as it was for its time. And even though I wasn't the biggest fan of Halloween Ends, the way David Gordon Green was willing to take some major risks with a popular franchise, I'm kind of hoping he also takes those major unpopular risks with The Exorcist, because then maybe it'll actually interest me and make me go, oh, I didn't know you could probably do that in the Exorcist franchise. Because come on, I'm curious, how many of you out there are actually excited for 3 Exorcist movies connected to that first movie? Bringing us to October 27th of 2023, the big horror movie before Halloween, Saw X. At least that's what the fans are calling it right now, the 10th installment in the Saw franchise, and man, as a longtime Saw fan, we have come a long way. This is now like the 3rd time they have done something new, with every sequel in the Saw franchise slightly trying to reboot it, but never exactly getting their feet on the ground. For their 3rd attempt, they will be going back to the events between Saw 1 and 2, bringing Tobin Bell back, John Kramer, where we'll be finding out about a story in between the first 2 Saw movies that we never knew about, and I swear, if it's him training another apprentice that was hidden and they're just gonna happen to take over, I'ma lose it. That's just the cliche way to go with Saw. But because I've stuck around with this franchise for so long and I love the unnecessarily complex storyline that they've told, I'm getting more excited for this movie as the months are rolling along. But I also gotta think this has to be the last straw in the Saw franchise. This sequel doesn't work out, might as well just reboot the entire thing, because no way you give us another unrelated sequel when you've been doing that the past couple times. Then on December 20th of 2023, we'll be returning to the Ghostbusters franchise with the sequel for Ghostbusters Afterlife. Now, I really enjoyed what Jason Reitman was able to do with Ghostbusters Afterlife, reintroducing us into the Ghostbuster world, paying respect to the legacy characters while introducing us to some fun new characters. But now with the sequel, I have more to look forward to, because it looks like it's gonna be a classic Ghostbuster movie. The reason I say that is because it'll be taking us back to New York. They're going to reopen the firehouse. They're bringing back characters from the last movie, Paul Rudd, Finn Wolfhard, McKenna Grace, and then more than likely hire some new people to put on the jumpsuits and fight some random ghost haunting New York City. That's more of a traditional Ghostbuster movie than what the last film was, and since they got the vibes right of the Ghostbuster world in that last movie, I'm curious to see what a modern classic Ghostbuster story will look like. Now, there are specific horror movies that do not have release dates I did want to talk about here and add on to the list. We just don't don't know exactly when they're dropping. For one, the movie that'll complete what was a wild trilogy of X and Pearl Maxine. This will be a direct sequel to the events after the movie X, where we follow Mia Goth as Maxine moving out to Hollywood trying to become a big star, only to get herself unraveled in the VHS scene of pornography. So far, the last two movies have been pretty different from each other, yet connect so well in terms of story and themes. I'm really curious to see what Ty West does to finish off this trilogy, because it's not every year we get horror movie sequels made this rapidly fast. But on that subject, we actually do have another horror franchise with sequels getting made rapidly fast, and that is the new Strangers trilogy. If you didn't know, yes, this past year they filmed 3 new The Strangers movies starring Madeline Pesh from Riverdale. It is considered to be a remake, so it's not going to be connected to the past 2 The Strangers movie, and it'll be all one connected story that'll run through 3 movies. We just have no idea right now how they plan to release the 3 films, whether they'll sell them to Netflix and then release them week by week, kind of like they did with their Fear Street trilogy, or whether they plan to release them in theaters couple months apart or just 3 years apart. It's not really known right now, but you can bet you'll at least get one of those 3 Stranger movies this year. We also have the new Ari Aster and Joaquin Phoenix horror movie called Beau is Afraid. This is the same director who brought us Hereditary and Midsommar. We have a poster and a basic plot that goes as: decade-spanning surrealist horror film set in an alternate present, Phoenix plays an extremely anxious but pleasant-looking man who has a fraught relationship with his overbearing mother and never knew his father. When his mother dies, he makes a journey home that involves some wild supernatural threats. Like I said, the man who made Hereditary and Midsommar did this movie, so we can expect something crazy. I have heard one wild thing about this movie that I do want to share with you. Apparently, there's a penis monster in this film. So add it to your most anticipated. I know there's going to be some people asking about the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. There's a possibility that could be released this year. Both Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends were both shot at the beginning of one year and then released that same year. It's possible Blumhouse can do that again with Five Nights at Freddy's, since they've already announced Matthew Lillard as William Afton and Josh Hutcherson as Mike Schmidt, or Michael Afton. But I don't want to jinx it, so we'll be patient on when they decide to release that, along with a whole bunch of other horror movies we don't even know will be releasing until weeks or maybe even months after they get announced. Still, these were some of the major horror movies being released this year. I think it could be an exciting one, filled with some really interesting ones headed our way. I want to know from you guys, what are you most looking forward to? Anything, everything, be sure and leave your thoughts down below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter at 3C Films or on TikTok at 3C Films. But as always, I'm Chris. Take care.